Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
Good. We've been doing a lot of these lately. Yeah,
I know
it's great. Well, there's a lot going on.
there
Uh,
is, and that's not even that doesn't even cover all the texting back and forth during the Mets games.
oh, God. my blood. God knows what my blood pressure is doing. During like um. Anyway, so lots of stuff is seemed to be happening between the time we saw each other last week at grocery shop and today, all of which I think have like implications for what retailers need to do in terms to innovate, um, in order to be successful or at least to just kind of keep up. And all the innovation is happening. I mean, so much of the innovation is happening at the high end, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got I mean, give you an example. I got on the plane to come back to Connecticut on Thursday from Las Vegas, and I bumped into somebody who it ended up was a manufacturer who was at grocery shop to see what was going on, and she told, and we'd never met before. We ended up having a conversation, and she was telling me, oh, she's very excited. She just got an email from Walmart saying that they were going to start offering they were going to start offering personalized homepages for their online shoppers, which was going to provide all sorts of opportunities for retailers, especially in the area for manufacturers, especially in the area of retail media. And my first reaction was, you won't be surprised, was, gee, Amazon's been doing personalized homepages for like, I don't know, 25 years.
25 or 30 years. Yeah.
Right. I mean, a long time. But and yet again, we see this thing happening where the first and biggest opportunity is seen as being retail media offer, as companies like Amazon and Walmart turn themselves into ad agencies. Because that's where the money and that's where the money grab's going to be.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, you're good. It's a lot richer retail media experience if it's personalized to the shopper, right? If the same shoppers are seeing the same banner ad,
Hmm.
you're going to get a lot of impressions from that banner ad, which is a measure, but you're not going to get a lot of conversions, right? But if you can tailor the content to the individuals, have it be relevant to them, an ad, a well-designed, well-timed ad, that they see, whether it's a search result ad or another type of ad, through that, your likelihood of conversion is higher. And frankly, if you do it right, it can be just fine for the customer experience, but you got to do it right.
Yeah. And but again, I always think that stuff needs to be seen not just within the context of technological innovation, but the fact that it creates even more challenges for retailers to for if your again if your name is not Amazon or Walmart or Costco or even Kroger Albertsons, the pressure on you in terms of being able to compete is enormous. I mean, we've already had the story this week about how Fresh Encounter is being acquired by Spartan Nash.
Mhm.
And I mean, to me, the message is clear that retailers like Fresh Encounter, well thought of, well managed, just really can't really survive or may not be able to survive in this current environment. And so they have to find a godfather. They have to find somebody who's going to protect them. I mean, that just seems to be the message that I think the way I put it on Morning Newsbeat earlier this week was everybody's looking for a dance partner.
Mhm.
And the ones that don't end up with a dance partner, whether it's through acquisition or partnering alliances or whatever it happens to be, um, are going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough if you're not, one of those larger companies with larger innovation budgets, with lower cost of capital, right? With just the ability to do more things. Because the same dollars, it costs Kroger the same dollars to build a feature that it does Fresh Encounter to build the same feature, right? And obviously Kroger gets a lot more ROI on that. And Kroger can build a lot more features because they have a lot more resource to do such. So it does, these mid and smaller players just they have to come up with other ways to do it. And in some ways, it's okay. I will join that Godfather or that larger, acquirer slash dance partner to be able to play on a bigger stage. And in some cases, it may be, I have to go partner with, somebody like an Instacart, right? Or somebody that, can bring technologies to me as a smaller player or capabilities to me as a smaller player, more economically. But it's just tough. I mean, it is absolutely tough.
I would think that in some ways, I haven't asked them about this, but for an organization like Good Food Holdings, right, which has Bristol Farms and New Seasons and Met Market,
Mhm.
you know, right now, if you're let's say you're an independent small retailer with somewhat of a specialty food bent, right?
Yep.
You know, I would imagine at the moment, not Good Food Holdings would have almost its pick of the litter in some ways. In other words, if it wanted to expand, and God knows with South Korean money they would have the ability to kind of start to put together a different, it's not a Spartan Nash kind of relationship, but it's a different kind of alliance that would provide all
Mhm.
these retailers with certain kinds of economies of scale while allowing them to have their sort of their independent image and a way of doing business.
Yeah, there could be something there. I remember back in the day, being at Wegmans from Wegmans, the Wegmans, HEB, Meyer, and I believe Publix was in it for some period of time, but maybe not when Amazon and Publix became competitive. But they put it, they established a consortium,
Right.
across the three companies for, knowledge sharing, and then ultimately, designed to give the companies the benefit of scale, a little of more scale. I'm not sure. I left Wegmans kind of as that was happening, so I'm not sure what it ultimately yielded. There could be something in that. I mean, it's probably relatively complex to manage these consortiums. I mean, Topco is essentially a consortium, that could potentially aid that. Um, but I mean, you just have to get crafty.
Yeah.
You can't stop innovating. You gotta be there for your customers. You gotta be there in ways your customers expect, and then ultimately in ways they don't expect, but ultimately appreciate. And compete is a verb, as you always say. And it takes energy and nourishment, and capital, to go compete.
Yeah, and scale matters probably more than ever before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting also to read the stories about how Walmart is sort of introducing its own large language model, which is sort of ChatGPT, which will enable people, and they're early stages right now, but will enable people to actually interact with its website, talking to it, as opposed to having to go through it in a more linear fashion. Um, Again, these things take a long time to develop, but directionally, I mean, again, this is all part of their whole adaptive retail thing. How do we adapt all of our models so that we're more relevant to the customer in different kinds of ways, and allow the customer to interact with us and our products and our services in a more relevant way.
In a more relevant and more conversational way.
Yeah.
Less structured. The idea of typing a search, a specific search term to get a result. And we've all been trained to shop that way. It's become more natural for us, but it's not naturally the way we converse, right? So if you can build those elements into shopping, if you can, I mean, there's certainly, chat bots and whatnot, right, for interacting with customer service. And they've gotten quite sophisticated. They'll just continue to get better, and those will be based, on LLMs. LLMs will be available for store associates, to ask questions, of their own app, when serving customers, or even when, if you have a training question or a policy question, in store. Really easy to use an LLM to get that versus, oh, I have to talk to so and so in HR, or I have to talk to so and so in operations, to be able to help me with this problem. And so I think as LLMs kind of permeate business, there's lots of, internal and external ways to use them, really beneficially.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that so many of these chat GPT type models, they're very anodyne, right? I mean, I don't think of them, they're imitative. They're not, they don't tend to be creative on their own.
Right.
But when you're talking about shopping, you don't really need it to be more than anodyne, right? You're asking for fact-based. I mean, I suppose you could say, tell me about how many recommendations this product has had, and what's the worst. You could ask for product reviews, but those product reviews are going to come from other people.
Right. Well, even Amazon now, Amazon uses there's an AI type of engine that, when you're searching for, or when you're looking at a product on Amazon, they actually have a summary of the reviews.
Right,
So, users tend to say this and they tend to say this and they tend to like this and they tend to question that,
right.
which is quite helpful, versus scanning through all the individual reviews.
Yeah, yeah. And in the case of Amazon, and I always joke that I have like 70 items on subscribe and save, but I go through it every month to figure out, okay, what don't I need? What do I need? Because I don't get all 70 every month, right? I'm been able
Right.
to manipulate it. I might get 8 or 10, but it changes from month to month, but I keep my discount rolling forward. If I could do that verbally,
Yeah.
it would be as opposed to having to call it up and,
Yeah. Well, you're
just,
definitely giving us that's something for our roadmap for Replenium
yeah.
for us to do.
Right. But the
Well, I mean,
ability to,
Replenium we use machine learning to,
right.
we'll look at your past tendencies and say, this is probably what you want this month. So we'll, a lot of that clicking and moving, we'll be taking care of for you.
Yeah. And then Amazon's doing all, these, I mean, you saw this thing by Doug Harrington about AI supported product guides. What's that all about?
That was pretty cool. And I even way back in the day, we would always try to do product guides, I don't know, talk of like, I don't know, men's shavers, and so we would, you can't really ask an individual manufacturer to be, you can you be our category captain and help us write the product guide? But it always ends up super centered around that manufacturer, right? And then even if you're working with a manufacturer, do it yourself, and you come up with a product guide, it's okay. And we were never really able to, keep them properly updated, as new products come in, as trends change. Your product guide's good for like a quarter or two. And, we never got the massive, amounts of customer interaction with them that we wanted. And then we were always chasing like, which set of products, what categories are we going to do product guides in? And it just ended up to be a massive amount of work. So imagine that if you could have an AI engine that understands which products should be grouped together. You could probably tell it, but a good engine would know, right? These products are grouped together, and then, with a little bit of structure, be able to actually build and deliver a product guide that is current, and that ultimately interacts with customers and then can adapt based on that customer interaction. I think that can be, now on Amazon, if you go to search for men's shavers, you got to kind of go through the shavers, yourself, and then they'll have like on the detail page, they'll have where they have the different shavers will be lined up, and you can look at the various attributes of each and whatnot, right?
But
But you're
the
doing that as a
sponsored
human.
one's always first.
On the search for sure.
Right,
Well,
right,
yeah, even on the detail page, right? There are sponsored listing from others. Uh, um, but that still causes you to do that work.
right.
So imagine like why can't a machine do that and help you with that, right? And not necessarily make conclusions, but really lay out, and then if you're in there and you have a certain criteria
Right.
that matters to you, have the product guide adapt to your criteria. So I think it's a really nice feature, that Amazon has enabled.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I mean, because if you want people to kind of create content around this stuff, and you have a gazillion products, it's a nightmare, right? It's
Yeah,
logistically, but you're right, AI can do it in 30 seconds and figure it all out, and at
right.
least provide the backbone on which humans can make the decisions about what should be, can make
Yeah,
more editorially informed decisions in terms of the content. But
absolutely. Well, even at Amazon, they're going to start. I mean, they're already starting it to dynamically update content on detail pages
right,
using AI.
right. Hmm. Well, if you'll remember, I mean, how many years ago was it that I was involved in a video project? The idea was to provide editorial content around grocery products. I mean, remember the idea was to take categories and to develop editorial content that would constantly be refreshed. I just didn't go anywhere because it was
We
almost
tried. I
we
remember
tried.
we had a brand manufacturer that either they did underwrite it or they were ready to underwrite it.
Right.
Remember?
And it fell apart for reasons I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But I mean,
Bad management inside Amazon, it must have been. It was me.
Sure that is.
To be clear, it was me.
But the thing
It's
is,
not anybody else.
but the thing is that the notion of, but again, I mean, I think our pitch was at the time was you got to be able to tell a better story about the products you're selling, right?
Absolutely. And that's when we were just getting on the map in these categories too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the notion was here's a way to tell in a selective way to create an ongoing kind of video magazine at the time, which would talk about different categories and different products and tell stories, and some of it would be sponsored and some of it wouldn't. God, it was almost like a retail media network.
Whoa. Yeah, it was.
I missed that boat. But and that's really important. And it seems to me, again, to always bring it back to the small retailers who don't have these the financial resources and the technical resources to be able to go in this direction.
Yeah.
If you got to figure out a way to tell the story about your store and the products inside.
Absolutely.
If you don't do that and don't figure out other ways to do it, I mean, you're just going to get totally lapped by some of these companies.
Absolutely.
Like, gee, go figure. At the end of the day, just what are we saying to people? You got to innovate.
Brilliant.
Anyway, well, great to see you as always. And it was fun hanging out in Vegas last week, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Take
Kevin.
care.
Thanks, everyone.